From the front pages of your newspaper to the front of your television screens, yes, we delve into the deeper issues, all the issues that have been making the trending headlines here on The Headliner. Welcome to it. It's another week, another edition, and my name is Curtly Gwindi. We are back with you on our television screens as we navigate through the myriad of information presented in the press. In today's episode, we focus on road traffic. Yes, this particular issue that has to do with accidents and the critical importance of safety as well as compliance. To unbundle this, we are joined by the director of the Road Safety Network in Zimbabwe, Mr. Sam Nyaude, to discuss the narratives, examine the key lessons, and shed some light on the broader implications for our society. We are supposed to have the Road Safety Traffic Council, but they couldn't make it as they were attending a meeting in Geneva, Switzerland. But all the same, Mr. Sam, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Such a pleasure to be having you on The Headliner. And yes, we are talking on the backdrop of many reports, many issues, as well as many travesties that have been happening on the road. What's the general outline and the bigger picture with regards to perhaps conversation around road traffic safety as well as the roads themselves?
Yeah, first and foremost, maybe looking at road traffic in Zimbabwe, we need to look at the issues that people are talking about every day. Most people are concerned every day they leave their houses whether they will make safe journeys in between their occupations, or maybe just going to the shops, taking children to school, walking to the supermarket or to the hospital. Everyone is concerned about the safety on the roads. And like you've mentioned, there's been a noticeable spike in road traffic crashes resulting in injuries and deaths. And asking about the general overview, it's sad to note that if we look at the SADC region, Zimbabwe is particularly doing terribly in terms of road safety.
Oh yes, and those are statistics and riveting figures, obviously, that we will be getting into with regards to some of the reports that we have been getting, and perhaps some of the headlines that we'll be tracking in today's episode. But of course, as per tradition, we will pay particular attention to the headlines of the day, and we start off with a story in the Herald, which is tagged "Liquor Stores in Harare CBD Face Closure." Now, the government has decided not to renew licenses for all standalone bottle stores currently operating in Harare CBD, also known as the Central Business District. These licenses are set to expire in June, and going forward, only liquor stores located within supermarkets will be permitted to operate within the CBD. An interesting development that we will be tracking in today's episode. And we move on to the Chronicle today, which reads, Lady Chevrons drawn in Group B for ICC Women's T20 World Cup Qualifier 2024. According to the International Council, 10 teams divided into two groups of 5 each will compete into the qualifier in 2 Abu Dhabi venues from April the 25th. We move on to the story of the day, a story which each and every media house has been paying particular attention to, and obviously the crack of the matter in today's headliner, a story that has the concern of authorities and related organizations. The story was tagged by the allafrica.com. The Baitbridge death toll rises to the death toll in fatal road traffic accidents involving 2 cross-border buses that occurred early Saturday morning, which has risen from 7 to 9. Now, quite a very, very serious travesty that has occurred there. And we also now pay particular attention to the Newsday on the 21st of March 2024, and it reads, accidents claim 553 lives on 4 months. And the latest Zimbabwe National Statistics Agency, ZimStat, figures indicate that 552 people died in road traffic accidents in the last quarter. A report from the World of Statistics indicates that 41 people per 100,000 die in road traffic accidents in Zimbabwe. Obviously, what Sam was making reference to earlier on. And the Zimbabwe National Statistics Agency, ZimStat, Zimstat reports that the number of road traffic accidents increased by 7.9% in the fourth quarter of 2023 compared to the third quarter of 2023. 552 people died and 2,663 people were injured in road traffic accidents in the fourth quarter of 2023, and it is important rather to educate drivers on safe driving practices and to enforce stricter penalties for those who break them. Yes, and this is in line with the conversation that we'll be carrying forward with regards to headlines today. And of course, if you are someone who is driving, you do not want to go anywhere, or if you by any chance use road to travel, which you probably will, you probably don't want to miss the upcoming episode. This is the headliner, and this concludes the first segment. Please stay tuned for the second. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, viewers. This is indeed the headliner, and we are carrying the conversation forward with regards to everything to do with road safety. And in studio today, as I've alluded to earlier, we are joined by the director of the Road Safe Zimbabwe, Mr. Sam Yaude, who is discussing all things to do with the headline we were carrying forward with regards to the first segment, and that pays particular attention to the safety of people in roads. Now, we are looking at statistical figures, Mr. Sam, and at this present moment, perhaps you can share with us, over the years and most recently in the past week or so, there has been an increase in road accidents as well as fatalities in Zimbabwe. What can be attributed to this, and how can we mitigate this worrisome statistic?
First and foremost, let's shift from referring them to roads as road accidents.
Mm-hmm.
I think a basic dictionary definition of an accident is something that is unavoidable.
Mm-hmm.
So once we categorize these as accidents, that means that they're meant to happen and there's nothing we can do about it. Road traffic collisions are avoidable and preventable, and there's evidence-based technologies and interventions that can reduce the occurrence of road crashes, collisions, resulting in injuries and deaths. You mentioned earlier that Zimbabwe has a road death statistic of 41 per 100,000. If you look at how scary that is, it puts Zimbabwe in at least the top 5 most dangerous countries to use a road, seeing that the world averages for road crashes is around 22 worldwide. So Zimbabwe, with that number that you've put out, basically puts it at double the risk.
Statistic.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there is need for us as a country to make road safety a priority, and urgently. Something that is important to note is that road crash or road traffic injuries are the leading, or among the leading killers of young people, and young people in their prime, people between 5 and 29 years, are most at risk to die using the road. So while we may have interventions that are working for prevention of infant mortality, you get a child to 5 years old, yay, we've saved a child. We put that child on the road going to school, bam, take away that life. So that's something that we need to put into perspective and really make road safety a priority. Yeah.
And how best can we put the idea of mitigating some of these worrisome figures? What positions have been put in place? Because we are looking at a time where we have a global plan as an entire worldwide operation. And then we are also zeroing down into some of the statistical figures that we'll be looking at within this document you've just shared with me, which is the African Road Safety Charter.
Yeah.
And what are some of the plans of action that have been put in some of these documents?
When we look at the global plan for the decade of action, it's a 10-year plan that started in 2021 that targets to reduce road deaths by 50% by 2030. This document, the global plan, suggests solutions that include empowering, the lead agencies like the Traffic Safety Council, for example, empower them that they can make strategies that reduce road carnage. You referred some of your statistics in the background to the Zimstat. If you look at 2018, or from 2016 coming up to, there's a significant rise in road crash occurrences in the year 2018. But if you look closely at that, that's on the Zimbabwean perspective. You look closely at it, the significant rise is noticeable at a period just after we don't have police presence on the roads. So already for us, that is an indicator that if we bring back proper traffic enforcement in Zimbabwe, there could be a reduction in the occurrence of road
Carnage.
Yeah, road carnage. They definitely, the introduction of proper policing would reduce road carnage. The NDS speaks a lot of volumes about the need to improve road safety. We have noticed the construction of many roads under the Ministry of Transport, which is a positive development. But then we also need to look at constructing roads that allow everyone to use the road safely.
Yeah.
That means look at the new roads that have been built. If you look at them properly, there is not enough space for pedestrians, for cyclists, even for motorcyclists.
Yes, because I was going to point to that National Development Strategy 1 that has been espoused by our government, which also has a play with regards to expansion of roads.
Yes.
But at the very same time, we are looking at the feasibility of some of the projects that are ongoing within our country. Would you say from your standpoint, as someone who is within the field and industry, that at times the position being played by government, is it enough to just put roads, or there is some kind of safety measures that are also supposed to be considered? For example, you've mentioned cyclists and pedestrians. What's your take on that?
It's very interesting to note that one of our finest roads in the country, Plumtree to Forbes,
Yes.
is effectively Harare Blawayo,
Yes.
Harare Mtare,
Yes.
is on record to be where we have the most carnage occurring. So we've got a good road, and that has come with a lot of death. That means that we need to reassess why we have high carnage on a good road, you see. So there is need for safety measures to be put in the construction of these roads. Again, you mentioned the role of government. At this point, and I think personally from one thing that is supposed to be in the short-term government plans is to have a road safety strategy for Zimbabwe. Right now, I think we reference the NDS one. We look at the projects being done under the Economic Road Recovery Program, and but we don't have a clear-cut strategy of how are we going to reduce road carnage in Zimbabwe. Without a strategy, where us as non-governmental organizations, where private limited companies, corporations can plug into, because like we said earlier on, everyone is affected by road carnage. The cost of road carnage to the economy is terrible. In a report by Traffic Safety Council, I think 2 years back, it estimates that the country loses about $406 million per year to road carnage. What if we invested $100 million to road safety? Don't you think that we would save, just look at the process of a road crash. Car collision, there's loss of property, there's loss of limb, there's loss of life. You have to make phone calls, there's burden on the hospitals, there's bills to pay after you're treated from the hospital.
Oh, yes.
And you mentioned the Beitbridge fatalities. Our statistics are counting people that have died within the first week of the occurrence of a road crash. And then are we looking at people that are dying 3 weeks after, 6 months after, due to injuries resulting from road traffic injuries?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So I think for us it is very important to put that strategy out. I mentioned the burden on the hospitals. The number one call-out issue for ambulances in Zimbabwe, by almost 50%, I think, was road carnage.
Road carnage.
Yeah. So imagine if we reduce the occurrence of road carnage, that means that we reduce the need of ambulances, we reduce the number of beds in hospitals.
And everything comes together.
Yeah.
Quite right. And let's talk about these figures because figures do make everything that we are encompassing within this conversation. And we want to pay particular attention to the Zimbabwe National Statistics Agency, ZimStat. I'm sorry, I'm making reference to it once again. And it indicates that 552 people died in road traffic accidents last quarter. Now, that's a riveting figure, very traumatic to be listening to. And that was a 7.9% increase on traffic accidents within the third quarter of 2023, which was recorded. And how best do we now say, based on those figures that we've been getting, how has road safe played a part, and how has the awareness after such receiving of information, how far have we come with regards to raising awareness of road safety?
Okay. So 550 lives lost. If we were to just use that as a baseline, effectively it may mean 550 families grieving lost family members.
Yes.
Possibly 550 families have lost income. Well, obviously 550 families have lost income either by losing the breadwinners, either by medical bills, funeral bills.
Correct.
550 families have been impacted in a way that cannot be fixed for them. We do push awareness, but again, it's important to go back to the global plan where we're talking about evidence-based solutions. We can keep on talking without implementing evidence. We won't make any headway. It says that we can raise awareness, but then it has to be accompanied by proper enforcement.
Oh, yes.
Yes. So with awareness, yes, people now know that they have to drive this way. Enforcement is a big thing that we need to push for right now, even the judiciary. So of these 550 families, some people are going to sue.
Yeah. Correct.
But unfortunately, there are a number of people that have been disheartened by the system, that have been let down by the system, where there may be evidence of a culpable homicide, but no prosecution in the end. Some people are walking away with, very minimal fines after killing people, literally killing people. A driver who is drunk on the road and kills a child going to school is literally armed and going to destroy that life, but then sometimes there's no consequence to that.
Oh, yes.
So if we improve enforcement, if we improve, the judiciary, there has to be a penalty that is noticeable and seen for people that break traffic laws. And then as Road Safe Zimbabwe as well, what have we done? We have come up, myself being a road traffic road traffic crash survivor. We've set up a partnership, a network, a support group for road traffic victims. And in the coming month, we will have our first therapy session with an established psychologist, where we're going to start doing that post-crash care for as many people that we can.
Oh, quite right. And care to share more about this network and how people can access it?
The Zimbabwe Road Victims Partnership is open. It's an open free membership, and we are going to classify people based on their losses. And what we'll do is we'll have group therapy sessions where the psychologists establish people's needs and what care they need to be given, and then that is brought down to smaller groups where people then can engage with psychologists one-on-one, as a family, and then get that trauma counseling on the go.
Oh, definitely. And we say kudos to you for that. And most definitely, we look forward to be having that conversation going on with regards to road traffic accident survivors. And perhaps as we wind up, you can share with us what your view and opinion has been with regards to technology playing a role in road traffic accidents.
Okay. Yeah, so if you look at Africa and also the countries that are leading in road safety in the world, the technology plays a huge part in making that happen. I will cite Kigali, for example. Kigali is one of the safest countries in Africa to use a road. They have huge police presence on the roads, and they've got cameras, speed cameras, on the roads. So according to the global plan again, which is like a manual in this decade of action for road safety, it's called a decade of action because people have to act.
Yes.
States that speed reduction, especially in built-up areas, will significantly reduce the effects of road collisions if they happen. For example, at 30 kilometers per hour, the possibility of a person dying in that collision is almost zero.
Zero. Yes.
Yeah. And then as the speed increases, the risk of death also increases.
Yeah.
So you find that cities like Kigali and the world over have started putting up 30 kilometer per hour speeds in built-up areas, especially around markets, schools, hospitals, where a lot of people converge, where traffic and motorized traffic and pedestrians meet.
Yeah.
So that is based on what is called the safe systems approach.
Okay.
The safe system approach says that people will make mistakes. Some accidents will happen.
Yeah.
Some will be accidents. Some are blatantly, road traffic crimes. So accidents will happen. The car will fail. Someone will get hurt. But then if we are within like 30 kilometers per hour and your car's got no brakes, you're possibly going to have just a fender bender and not ram into something that is destructive.
True.
So I think for us, it's time for us to urgently implement the safe systems approach. It's urgently implement a strategy for Zimbabwe where all players can plug in, because we all use the roads at some point every day.
Oh, yes.
And I have a friend of mine who's constantly been saying, Sam, I don't understand how a person joins a queue in a bank, waits for 30 minutes to be served, and then the moment they step out into their car, they're a raging menace, blasting the horn, overtaking on the left, this and that.
Oh, yeah.
So I think there's that. We need to bring back humanity, Ubuntu to people, yeah.
Yeah, and patience does pay, and it does play a role, and most definitely. Let's talk about the detriments, perhaps, of technology itself. It does play a role with regards to distractions on the road, and perhaps share with us just briefly how some of these distractions have happened because of perhaps, digital screens or even cell phones themselves.
I think cell phones for us are a huge problem in Zimbabwe. Again, it comes back to enforcement. Distracted driving has resulted in a lot of minor collisions and also serious collisions where people literally just hit a child, die while looking at their phone. We've seen videos online of Zimbabwean socialites got into road traffic crashes while using
driving.
Yeah. So I think let's back to enforcement.
Oh yeah, and if we stick it that way, most definitely we will be right with regards to the contribution of road accidents and traffic matters here in Zimbabwe. Mr. Sam, thank you so much from the Road Safe Zimbabwe.
Thank you so much.
We hope you drive safe on your way back.
Thank you so much.
All right, most definitely. And that has brought a wind up to our second segment here on The Headliner. Kindly stay with us. The third segment is coming back with the Editor's Choice. Thank you so much for staying with us. This is still The Headliner, and yes, we are here with the third and final segment, the Editor's Choice. And yes, indeed, we are brought to light in studio today by a very familiar face, no stranger to our programming here on The Headliner, and this is none other than Fungai Jachi. Thank you so much for staying with us, Fungai.
Thank you so much for having me again.
Again, yes,
Yes.
yes, yes. You are probably just going to be our resident editor. I think that's the best way to put it. How do you feel about that?
I think I would love that.
It'll be good for you?
Yes.
All right, great. Because we are still tracking the issue, and I'm pretty sure you were watching what we were talking about last week, which had to do everything to do with the Madzibaba Ishmael saga. And it has unraveled, and maybe taking us back a little bit, we do know that he was a cultic leader who was arrested, and on that basis, many around him were arrested, and some of the heinous crimes that he was committing. Perhaps share more as to where we've come from and where we're going with regards to that issue.
Okay, so currently they remain allegations
Yes.
until proved otherwise.
All right, from the courts reporter herself.
Indeed. So, Madzibaba Ishmael was arrested, like we all know, and he made his initial appearance in court at the Norton Magistrates Court. And so he applied for bail. Of course, bail is a constitutional right, but in this case, he was denied bail. Because the state was arguing that it will not be right for them to actually give Madzibaba Ishmael bail because there would be a public outcry. So the magistrate agreed with the state and they were denied bail. So as we speak right now, they are in remand prison and they will be back in court on the 4th of April for their return remand.
Okay.
Yes.
And with regards to that issue, perhaps just interrogating it a little bit more, how best have you seen some of these, sagas unravel? Perhaps we're now looking and projecting from a media standpoint, where can this conversation go, or what's the direction of this judgment, or it's not known?
Okay, so usually when cases come to court, the main thing that should happen is to prove the allegations. Because when you fail to prove what you are alleging, then it becomes a problem. So in this case, I would like to believe that if the complainants are really there, if the complainants are there who are saying that their relatives died under mysterious
Because
circumstances.
we are talking about families that
Yes.
have their relatives buried without death certificates.
Yes.
We're talking about children who are involved in child labor as well
Yes.
as sexual exploitation.
Yes.
How far have the witnesses come to the stand?
Well, right now the trial has not started. They're still on their routine remand. So I hope we're going to get enlightened as soon as the trial commences. I hope it is going to start soon, because usually the delays in the trials will make some of those cases just die down. But then I hope this case is going to be treated like with the emergency that it actually deserves. Because if a case is delayed, then it would just die down and people will forget about it. But if it's done now, then at least it will be hyped enough for the case to get the real attention that it actually deserves. And hoping that the witnesses who are going to come along are really going to give it their all in terms of testifying and actually proving that Madzibaba Ishmael and his accomplices were doing something wrong.
Like you said, Simbinoro Pisa.
Yes, exactly.
And, timelines with regards to outcome. How best can we look at the timelines of such a case, and probably in your previous experiences as someone who stays within the courts?
Okay, so trials usually take a long time, especially when there are so many witnesses involved, because there are a lot of things that are involved in terms of trials. So hoping that the state puts everything in order and on time. We're looking maybe at a period of about 6 months at most. Maybe we'll have an outcome of the case.
Of the case.
Yes.
All right, most rightly. And, so many of the issues that were involved, particularly touching, have to do with children being on the stand, have to involve families, women, vulnerable groups, as well as even deaths of individuals.
Yeah.
We've seen the resurfacing, for example, of a professor from the University of Zimbabwe, Professor Moati, who was only declared to be, given the death certificate as well as the cause of death only after this particular issue of Madzibaba Ishmael being arrested coming to the stand. Now, with such information surfacing at this stage and juncture, what can you say about the particular interests of people in this matter? Has this become a case of national interests, of police interests itself? How are we balancing those issues?
I think it has obviously become an issue of national interest, simply because sometimes people take advantage of others because of religion. You see, all these things were happening because people believed in some prophet, and so people usually get in trouble unknowingly because of believing in someone. So now that these things are now coming out, at least maybe it's going to be an eye-opener for others to say that, no, we have to know when we are being abused, when we have to put a line between religion and what is wrong and what is right. Because most of the time we're having problems because of people believing in religious leaders instead of believing in doing the right thing.
Oh yes, and the right thing will come to light, and as always has been said and espoused, you know, media does play a role with regards to these issues. How impactful has media been, and how has media carried the narrative? Some people are playing their own interests, and you know, like you rightly said, it's an issue of national interest, but at the same time, has media been helpful with regards to tracking the situation, and will it be, as these 6 months as you've espoused suggest?
Well, I think the media has been doing its best. I mean, from the onset, when he was arrested, the media was there, and we saw the videos, and we had those interviews, and the media was there. The media has been tracking what has been happening at the shrine. Remember, even some time ago when these issues started surfacing, the media was there, and then they just somehow hushed. But now I think probably maybe someone was investigating, and probably there was someone from the media who alerted the police that super dubious things were happening at that shrine, and then the police had to sweep in. But I believe it was the media who actually brought these things to light, and they are still tracking what is happening with the case, hoping that we will see it to the end.
Oh yes, and from Lily Farm to Pocket Hill Studios, that story has been the topic of conversation. We thank you so much for your contribution today, Fungai.
Thank you so much.
And we look forward to having more conversation with you. That has been Fungai Jachi, our courts editor, and most definitely she brings us a wealth of issues to do with everything around the courts. Today we are particularly paying attention to Madzibaba Ishmael and the saga around what was happening at Lily Farm. We also did bring you a trek of what is happening on our roads, as we had Mr. Sam Nyaude from the Road to Safer Zimbabwe. Now, of course, that brings a wind with regards to what we had for you today in the 7th episode of The Headliner. Please do make sure that you stay in tune with our programming, as we always bring you all the hot topics, trending stories, as well as issues that bring the tag of the headline. Now, my name is Kurtly Gwindi, and of course, from the crew behind the scenes and all those at Pocket Hill, it is a very pleasant viewing, and God bless Zimbabwe.